Hello there, and welcome to Charles Circle. This channel is a place to host playthroughs and other content on sandbox games that have me hooked. I play a variety of genres from city builders and factory games to turn-based 4X and grand strategy. The only rule is I have to have trouble putting the game down. I'll introduce you to each game, show you why I love it, and tell you what I think other games in the genre could learn from it. I won't claim to be an expert in all the games you'll find here, so these playthroughs are meant to be the start of a conversation. If you've got your own tips, tricks, suggestions, or requests, post them in the comments section or join the Discord channel. The first game I'll be playing is Captain of Industry. Captain of Industry is an indie factory game in early access with an incredibly active and responsive dev team. They just released Update 3, which brings some awesome changes headlined by trains. The update's been out less than a month, and since it came out, by my count, they've posted a dozen patches, squashing the inevitable bugs, but even more importantly, responding to player feedback and making balance changes requested by the community. That's what great indie development looks like. So, let's dive into it. A new game here. We're going to start, because I want this to be an accessible, beginner-friendly playthrough, on the default island, which is called New Haven. We are going to start at the default starting location. We'll spread out pretty quickly. This is, particularly on this map, a pretty low-stakes decision. So, New Haven, default starting location. Let's go. We're going to play on Captain. This is, I think if you're playing for the first time, I think Sailor's a reasonable decision. If you've been playing a ton, Admiral's a fun challenge. Captain, I think, is sort of the way that the game is meant to be played or balanced to be played. So that's how we'll do it here. And there are sort of a handful of other, difficulty options that you can toggle here. I personally think that Realism and Realism++ should both be on for pretty much any playthrough, maybe beyond your first one. But these are mechanics that I think should matter in this game, right? Food should matter. Fuel should matter. Groundwater supply should matter. So we're going to play with these on ourselves. There are tons of other ways that you can sort of customize the game to your own difficulty or, challenge as well. We are going to, let's just roll the dice here and see. Pioneering Bay. Yeah, that sounds great. Here's the game seed. Feel free to snag it if you'd like to play along. And let's go. Now, this is the part where I'm supposed to ask you to like and subscribe, and I certainly won't tell you not to. The algorithm's great, but sharing with another human being is far better. So if you do enjoy the video and you want to help support what we're building here, please consider sharing a link in whatever group chat, online community, etc. that you see fit. A human recommendation is worth 1,000 likes. But enough preamble. Let's get into it. Here we are. I'm going to pause right away just so that we can orient ourselves and sort of show you around. This is the world. We start on an island. This island, as you can tell from the colors, has different resource deposits on it. This whole island is entirely terraformable, and in fact, that's a huge part of the game. You'll move around dirt, resources, etc. You'll dump it into the ocean in order to give yourself more space to build. And you'll chop down all these trees and then plant your own in a sustainable but more controlled way. The interaction with the terrain is a huge part of this game, and it's very fun. What do we actually start with? Well, let's zoom in here a little bit and see. This is our starting settlement. So this is housing. It's got enough room for 80 people. Each one of these, there's a market for food. We're going to need to grow some food. We start with some, but not enough for forever. There's also this starting little deposit, which will give us a little bit of industrial materials we'll get to in a moment. In our shipyard, which you'll see is damaged for now, we'll also find an additional sort of starting supply of materials. We'll go through these, what they do, how important they are, etc., as we spin up our own productions of each of these so that we become self-sustaining. We also start with a boat, which rules. We're going to call her Big Bertha. we are not going to be able to make use of her right away. We have to, as you saw, the shipyard is damaged. We have to repair it before we can get to that. We will probably take an episode to get our feet under us before we are able to get the ship in motion, but it's a very fun part of the core gameplay loop as well. So what are we going to try to do for our first episode here? As I said, we're going to try to get our feet under us today. Largely, we'll be following sort of this goals based tutorial that you'll see up here in the top left. If you're playing for the first time yourself, I suggest doing the same thing. Not only is it relatively helpful way to sort of get your plane up off the ground, as you complete these, you'll get additional one-time resource boosts, which is invaluable as you are getting going. All right, so we're going to start by trying to get our basic materials production up and running. First thing we'll do is start with logs. This is a tree harvester. His job is to cut down trees. I'm going to give him some trees to cut down by pressing the H key and designating these trees as cut downable, technical term. We can use this to prioritize, areas where we want to expand. We'll tell him to get after it. He will also need some trucks to transport the trees that he cuts down and turns into logs. The game recommends 2, as you can see here, which I think is pretty reasonable. One truck will be running it back to base while the other is being loaded. You'll see what that looks like in action very shortly. All right, the next thing we'll do before we unpause is our coal maker and our blast furnace. We're going to create a very basic, definitely going to be deleted and rebuilt later, sort of smelting operation. So what does that mean? What does that look like? Let's just place it for a moment. We won't unpause quite yet. In fact, we'll pause the construction. This is the basic industrial processing unit, right? And so what this recipe gives us is the ability to turn iron scrap and coal, which we'll come to in a moment, into molten iron, and it produces exhaust. We then take that molten iron and we put it into a metal caster. And in fact, because this is capable of producing 24 and this is only capable of processing 12, what we're going to do is place 2 metal casters. Additionally, if we don't take care of this exhaust, we will find ourselves all backed up and unable to keep processing. So we need to use a smokestack. Now a smokestack can process 60 exhaust or carbon dioxide, not that we make any of that quite yet, and just dump it into the atmosphere. That'll create air pollution. We'll want to do something about that over time, but nothing to be done about it quite yet. You can attach this directly to the blast furnace, but because you'll see this doesn't actually use 18 out of 60, the entire capacity of a smokestack, you can save yourself a little bit of building materials in the early game. 10 of these, it adds up, by sort of merging the outputs here together. It's a little sweaty, a little try hard, but at the same time, every little bit helps. I want to get our playthrough up off the ground quickly. So let's do that. The other input is coal. We need to turn our timber into coal using a coal maker. Using R to rotate and F to flip, okay, the orientation. I'm going to put our coal maker roughly here. Everything's going to have to be transported by truck for now because we haven't unlocked belts yet. That'll make our economy go a lot smoother when we're able to connect those, but for now, they're just simply close. The one thing we will be able to connect by belt, thankfully, is the molten iron, which is good because that is not something you throw into the back of a truck. All right, so I guess we'll unpause this here. As I said, you'll be able, if you merge the outputs, to sort of take care of the exhaust of both buildings in one smokestack instead of creating, a whole second one already. So let's take this pipe and join it here. None of this is particularly optimized yet. As I said, it's all quite temporary. With that in motion, it's on pause finally. So, what's the other thing it's suggesting that we do? It's the very first thing that I clicked on as we zoomed in here. We got to get food. Food's important. How do we make food? Let's talk about it while we're building our smelting setup. Food production, down here, is limited at this point to the basic farm. They're huge. They take up a ton of space in this game. This is definitely going to be a temporary setup as a result of that. What we could do, again, if we wanted to try a little bit hard, because we don't have belts yet, we could actually connect this farm directly, if you can see the green connection there, the output of the farm into the input of the market. Why not? Let's save our trucks a couple trips. So what does a farm do? Well, it just magically makes potatoes, kind of. It does depend on two things. One, soil moisture. Eventually, we'll be able to upgrade this to an irrigated farm and add water if there's not enough rain. We're not there yet, so we have to rely on the rain. We can't control that, so we're just going to shrug and roll with it as best we can. Soil fertility will degrade over time, especially if you don't let the crops take turns with crop rotation. You can add fertility back by producing fertilizer later in the game, but again, we are just starting out. So for now, we're just going to kind of watch this bar go down, and that's just going to be a bummer. So as you see now, the recipe potatoes are made from, as I said, water and fertility. As a result, this means that our production is actually going to kind of drain over time, so we are going to want to keep an eye on that. Even though this is definitely enough to start, that will not be the case, and we definitely don't want to be caught off guard by it. Okay, last thing. We are back now, looking at our smelting setup. So as you can see, trucks have brought over some iron scrap. We've started to chip away here at our free pile of it. And we've got wood going into the coal maker and turning into coal. Great. So this is up and running. We're making our first iron. In fact, we've made our first, however many we wanted, 12, I think. And so we were able to collect our reward. Like I said, these are actually like kind of nice little boosts early on. That is more, this is a good chunk compared to what we have right now for each of these. So we'll definitely take it. With that in mind, looking at the food production one that we've already started, we just need to wait on this one. Taters will grow, and we will just kind of collect that passively eventually. The next thing we're going to do is get our research labs up and running. So we're going to have to build power to do that because the research lab is, I believe, the first building that requires electricity. I like to place these diesel generators, which are the only technology we have up front and we are definitely going to move away from quickly as we can, down here next to the shipyard. One, that's where most of our diesel is right now, but two, eventually our ship takes diesel as well, and so I usually like to keep our storage right down here, and as you can see, there's a pipe input that allows you to store it here. So this is running. We will be manually bringing diesel over one truckload at a time. We're going to make 800 kilowatts, and it's going to pollute. This is like nothing in electricity, frankly, but it's definitely enough for our research lab, which is what we want to get kicked off here as quickly as we can. As you can see, it only takes 40 kilowatts. So I think I'm going to get greedy, and we're just going to slap down 2 of these right away. We've got the parts for it, we've got the electricity for it, and we have the workforce for it, as you can see here. But they're not doing anything until we pick research, so this is probably a good moment to dive in here and show that off a little bit. So as you see, we start with a couple things already, obviously, but what we're going to start doing research on right now is construction. Construction will allow us to make our own supply of construction parts, which is really important. If we don't do this quickly enough, we're simply going to run out of the ability to make new buildings. It uses things we're already producing, or at least have an initial pile of, and we'll definitely work on getting our own concrete up and running. This also, in this building, this assembly, this basic manufacturing building, allows us to create sort of the first level of manufactured products, mechanical parts and electronics, and we'll come back to those in a moment because they're important. I'm going to queue up a little bit of extra research here as well. We'll talk about each of those as we research them. We've made potatoes. Let's collect that reward, which is construction parts and more potatoes. Wonderful. Our construction parts goal is up and running because we've got our research labs up and running. Once that's researched, we'll get, I think, a couple more steps, and we'll come to that in a moment. In the meanwhile, we might as well take a look at this waste dumping one. So, our population requires food. Without it, they will starve. But with it, they'll also give us unity, which is great. We'll talk about that in a moment. But they also output waste. And we're not in dire straits here yet. We can store up to 100. But we'd like to not have it just sitting around, right? So what we're going to do is take a waste collection module. And this can be placed anywhere, just like this market can be, by the way, anywhere around the exterior of our settlement. I'm going to slap it down here. Why not? Why, actually? Well, I'm going to put it there because what are we going to do with that waste? We are going to throw it in the ocean because that's all we can really do right now. If you want to be, a particularly forward-thinking, ecologically minded individual, you can keep it in a pile until you have the technology to do something better with it later. I'm going to extend our waterfront. I think that's kind of more important right now. Wonderful. So we have researched construction, which means we need to build an assembly 1, which is this basic manufacturing unit. We're gonna slap it down, I guess, right here for now. Again, this is all relatively temporary. So we are going to set the recipe for construction parts. I placed it here because, well, this is where we're making iron. We're already bringing wood over here and we need a concrete slab. Guess where most of our supply is for that as well. It's something to think about for placement in this game. The less distance that your trucks have to travel, the faster things get produced, and the less diesel it consumes. Waste dumping. We've dumped our waste. We have thrown our first trash into the ocean. Lovely, picturesque. Let's be rewarded for that. Okay. Now we just need to produce some construction parts. So as soon as our trucks are able to bring over some of these items, we'll start cranking that out. That'll take care of itself. Let's talk about the trading dock next, which is what we are researching. The trading dock is a great way to bail yourself out of a jam. If you run out of any of these materials, and you can do it very easily by not realizing you've burned through all of these, and you haven't gotten your own production up yet, you can enter a death spiral. This game has quite a few death spirals. This game has a lot of crisis management. One of the first decent tools for navigating those situations is the trading dock. And in about 10 seconds here, we are going to unlock it and immediately place it. It is your ally early game as you are learning how to use it. So let's place it far enough away, I guess, that it doesn't conflict with our shipyard, but still close enough that we can access it. Here. How do you use it? You click trade with a village, and you bring up the world map, which is kind of fun. This is us. This is our boat. There's always one starting village. The rest of these areas we're going to have to explore with our boats. That's why we want to get that up and running. But in the meanwhile, you can bring up this view with tab, by the way. We can at least interact with this neighboring settlement. You can collect population from them up to a certain level. You can improve the terms of your relationship and therefore the terms of your exchanges by investing in it. But really, most importantly, once we have built it, as you can see, we can't yet. Once we have built the trading dock, we can exchange some of our resources for some of theirs at a 1-to-1 ratio, which can be extremely powerful. Of course, if you do this too much, and really, frankly, hardly at all, the cost starts to accelerate. So you don't want to build your economy around this, but it's a great pressure release valve when you go, oh crap, I didn't build concrete production yet, and I need concrete slabs, and I've run out of my initial starting materials. That's a thing that probably will happen to me in about an hour. So we'll have these items here that we can exchange through the trading dock. Wonderful news. It does take 100 wood. It's a bit of an investment, especially early on. Quite frankly, you have plenty of trees. And I usually find that my tree harvester is actually sitting around waiting for room to put the trees, particularly this early on. Great, we have made construction parts. Let's grab our reward for that. This one will take care of itself. Let's talk now about maintenance. So everything, roughly speaking, has a maintenance requirement. You can see up here, we have requirements for maintenance. All of our trucks, vehicles, generators, pipes, belts, everything requires a little bit of maintenance. If you don't take care of producing enough maintenance in order to address that need on a continuous basis, stuff breaks. It's not great. It's not what you want. So let's get that up and running. This first building will be sufficient for us for quite some time, but you're going to see it requires, in order to produce maintenance, 2 parts that we are not manufacturing ourselves on a continuous basis yet. We do have a few here, so we're okay, but these are important pieces that we need to get our own production up and running on. And so if we look at the recipe, I brought that up directly, by the way, by right-clicking on the icon. You can see that, if you remember correctly, we already researched in the assembler the ability to turn iron into mechanical parts. Additionally, and then I'll right-click again on electronics, we need to turn, in the same building, rubber and copper into electronics. Early on, I think it's reasonable to make both of those items in the same building. I don't generally like to do too much of this in the later game, and we'll definitely refine our setup here accordingly. But for now, we're just going to set these both here so that we aren't building, additional unnecessary buildings, investing in a way that we don't need to yet. We don't make rubber. We don't make copper. We do make iron. We do have copper and rubber, but let's keep that in mind as we start to build out more of our basic resources. All right, maintenance is up and running. This number will approach 100%. It'll never actually really stay at 100%, by the way, so don't chase that dragon too much. It will get a full output here because we don't consume anywhere near what it produces in a go. So it'll probably drop down to something in the 90s every time until it pops back up. Don't stress about that. As long as it's not giving you blinking alarms that everything's on fire, you're probably okay. Let's grab our reward for that. All right, let's look at our trading dock, right? As I said, you can purchase concrete for iron. That was the use case I called out earlier. Let's just do that once in order to fulfill the goal. You'll see that it costs Unity. Don't worry, we're building up to a conversation on what Unity is and why it's helpful and important. But you'll see here that we have now 20 concrete slabs. I'm going to prioritize clearing stuff out of here because I always forget there's stuff in here, frankly. We are now able to collect this reward, which gives us more concrete slabs and more construction parts. So that's a pretty good exchange. We got, 100 total plus 60 construction parts for 20 iron. We'll take that. Okay, next thing to talk about. Let's talk about vehicles, right? Right now, our vehicles, you can see that 6 of our total 8 are idle. That's good. It means we're not really using our total capacity. They will become a bottleneck pretty quickly, though. And so, if you want your economy to really be humming, you definitely need to have enough trucks to keep things in motion. How do you do that? Well, let's pull up the vehicles depot. This little guy will produce, let's put it here. This little guy will produce trucks for us, along with excavators. Remember what I said about terraforming? We're going to do a lot of that in a relatively short period of time. This is also where you make more tree harvesters. I think we're okay for now. What we'll do, I think, is get an excavator going, along with a pair of pickups, in the same way that a tree harvester needs a couple pickups assigned to him to take all the stuff he pulls out of the ground, turned into actual resources. Same thing with an excavator. An excavator is going to go dig up stuff out of the ground, and then we are going to take iron ore from that, which will be what we work off of once we have burned through all of our iron scrap. So how are we going to do that? I'm going to zoom out for a second here. I'm going to press L to bring up the layers, the resource layers view. So you can see all these pretty colors. There are different resource deposits all over the map, even on these sort of neighboring mini islands as well. I'm not going to take you through every single one of them right yet. We'll address them as we get to them. This is a patch of oil, though. We're going to use that pretty soon. This is groundwater, which will be great for farming, as well as eventually supplying water to our settlement. This red is iron. This is what we're most interested in. We are next most interested over here in coal, because we can pull it out of the ground instead of burning trees to make it. That'll be better. So, with all that in mind, how do you mine stuff? Well, first thing you're going to need is a mine control tower. I like to place these, you can place them literally anywhere. I'll show you why in a moment. I like to place them just beyond the edge of where I think the mine will be. So, while it's building, let's show you how this works. You directly assign excavators and their trucks to operate within the space, this yellow box here, which we can adjust, and in fact are going to adjust. We would like to operate everywhere, basically, that you see some iron. And so now, we press escape to lock it in. This area will be managed by this mine control tower. We can move this literally anywhere on the map, by the way. So you could keep all your mine control towers in the center of your town, if that's really what you wanted to do. I don't recommend that personally, because when trucks idle and they don't have a task to do, or they can't find a way to complete their task, as you see, well, no, this guy isn't actually assigned here, sorry, but they will sit, as this guy is doing, right next to the mine control tower. So unless you want, every time your truck stalls out, for your truck to come all the way across the dang map and back, I think it's probably best to keep them in the area you want them to operate. They're not that expensive in the longer run. But we now need to tell our excavator, once we build him, actually we have, that's brilliant. Let's slap him in here, get him over. And as you see, he needs trucks. We'll give him 2. We need to give him instruction. What is he doing in this area? Well, we're going to bring up the mining designation, and we are going to tell him to get after it in this area where we have iron, right? We'll fine-tune this later. This is more than enough instruction for him. But the first thing I tend to do is just level the area flat. You'll see this goes down into the ground as well eventually. We will get a little bit more complicated than that in a moment, but not quite yet. This will be good enough for now. The last thing I'll do, just because it can be a bit of an efficiency gain, particularly early depending on the deposit, for some reason, you have to go to the individual excavator rather than the mine control tower. You have to go to the excavator and tell him, hey, I know I told you to dig all the way out here if you want, but like, I don't really want you to get dirt off the ground. I want you to go where there's red. I want you to get iron ore. I have to tell the individual excavator. Not a big deal right now, but when you have like 6 and you're reassigning them across the map, like it's a little bit of a pain. I'd love to be able to do it at the level of the tower itself. But it's one of those things one of those bits of micro it's kind of worth doing, especially early on. All right, our pickups are going. The iron ore is going. Oh, we should get some research going too. We'll talk about this in a moment, but grab these shortly. So what happens now when you have a full truck? It's putting a little bit in every time. It's going to be a mix of different things, much of which we aren't actually interested in. Rock and dirt, not helpful to us. We need to be able to sort all of the different things that are in the truck. And so this is a relatively new addition to the game. You didn't have to used to do this, but I think it's great. I think it's a better design. It was weird that a dump truck could go and like dump only 7 of the 20 pieces or chunks in its trailer at a specific storage. So primarily, we want to isolate the iron ore. That's the whole point here. But what else is in here? Well, we're picking up rock and we're picking up dirt. Those are the things that we tend to grab while we're pulling stuff out of the ground. So this is expensive, but it's important. So we're gonna slap this down and our trucks will then start dumping the iron and all the other crap that we have to sort through here. This will then output each of these sorted ingredients, and we'll take the iron by truck all the way over here. Now, iron scrap is free. We didn't really have to pull it out of the ground. So I'd always like to prioritize that. But now it's worth adding. Well, let's just say if you run out of iron scrap, and you will, wouldn't it be nice if you could also process the ore? You'll see that this recipe, however, also creates slag. Slag is crap rock. We will eventually find a way to use it, but not for quite some time. Right now, it's basically trash. Once we have belts up, I will create a storage that will keep us from having to do this manually every time. But for now, we're gonna have to have a truck come here every time it gets full and dump it out here. So, like our trash, right? So that's good. Let's grab our reward here. That's a pretty good one for iron ore mining. Processing iron ore, which is the next stage of what we've been working on here anyway. We are going to have to run through this sooner rather than later. I'm going to temporarily change the priority here so that we run through some iron ore as it becomes available, just so we can grab this gold. We do still generally want to prioritize iron scrap in our smelter for quite some time, frankly. Okay, let's pause and look at the research. Anything we've researched that we haven't built yet, or are we roughly keeping up? We are. That's great news and a slight surprise. Let's talk about what we're about to unlock, which is basic diesel. All of our trucks take it, our ship will take it, we aren't making it. We are starting, as you can see, to run down our supply. We need to make diesel. Running out of diesel is, in my experience at least, the single most common of the death loops in this game. How do you make it? Well, at first, we have a terrible recipe, but it's the only one we have, in the basic distiller. The basic distiller turns crude oil plus some coal, which we'll have to bring over, and it turns it into diesel, and it has this wastewater byproduct along with a pretty decent amount of exhaust. My goodness. We have to get rid of all that crap, or we won't be able to keep everything working. So, how do we do that? Well, the first thing we do is we pause because I oriented this poorly. So we're going to cancel the construction right before this guy delivers. Whoops, that was nearly the problem. We're going to place this here instead. This, similarly. Man, I want my copy-paste tools. Good news, they're coming shortly. We're going to place, in this case, the smokestack directly onto the building because it produces a lot. And so there's really not a lot of value, especially because it's kind of far away. We're building it by the oil. It's not really worth merging smokestacks here, in my view. We want to make a lot, by the way, a lot of diesel, so that we have a lot of diesel reserve, because it's really important. So we're going to build our first storage, select diesel, and I want to know if this is ever empty, because that will be important to address. So we're going to take a pipe, we're going to connect here. Again, We'll have belts so we can do this for non-liquids soon enough, but we don't quite have them yet. And we are going to, for now, need to dump this wastewater. I'm going to do this manually. We may add a storage at least eventually, but for now, we're just going to have a single waste dump here, which trucks deliver to manually. We throw this in the water, we get pollution. Kind of a bummer, just like our trash, but nothing we can do about it quite yet. So, great. With all that in mind, we're in motion mode. We'll unpause. Oh wait, we didn't do all that. We still need the oil. That's important. So, as we said, a distiller takes 60 oil per minute. One of these little oil pumps can make 20 oil per minute. And so what we'd like to do is get ourselves 3 of them. That's math. Bam. Last thing we do is we slap a pipe connector here. We take the pipe, we run it here, we connect this up here. Great. So that should be balanced to run continuously at full capacity, which is lovely. It'll take a moment to build everything here, but we should have diesel in a moment, which we love to see. All right, what else is it asking us to do? Why are we not processing iron ore quite yet? It's still building up, I guess. There's enough to bring over here. Well, let's just see. Oh, I see. We're full up on iron generally, which is probably a good push to store some of it. We'll connect these up with belts when we unlock them, but we need iron. I'd rather have more than just, you know, what happens to be stuck in the machine. If we need more than, 24 iron at a time, it'd be nice to have a bit of a buffer. So we'll get that going here as well. What else do we need to be doing? Pause here. Research. The beacon. Beacon would be nice. So the beacon is going to solve the fact that we are suddenly entirely out of workers. In order to get more workers, you either have housing space and people who are essentially comfortable from a having their needs perspective, their needs resolved perspective rather, and they'll slowly grow over time. That's not nearly enough. We are going to research this beacon, which is a building that takes a decent amount of unity, by the way, most of what we're producing, but it will bring every year-ish a new pile of refugees along with some little gifts that they bring along with you. Another nice little boost. So let's get that going as well. It wants us to build more housing as part of that goal as well. We don't really need it yet, and it's kind of expensive, 80 construction parts. I'm sure we'll do it in a moment so that we get the goal, but I don't think we want to quite prioritize that yet. Maybe this is a good moment to talk about Unity, right? What's Unity? Unity is this sort of fungible currency resource that allows you to flexibly fix whatever your current problem is. So if you want to build something super fast because it's taking too long, or you want to delete something super fast because it's taking too long, you can spend Unity on that. You can use Unity to boost the production of something. Like, by the way, I forgot to make a second coal maker to fuel our diesel over here. Until I build it properly, I can have this one running overtime. That costs, as you can see in this boost, some Unity. Running research labs takes Unity. You get Unity from a few different sources, primarily though from providing, for the needs of your population. So, conceptualized, you make them happy, they'll work harder. That's really what it comes down to. That said, let's get that coal maker in here before I forget. That one's on. Remember how I said it didn't matter? That we didn't need to slap our exhausts into the same one? Well, I was wrong, and I didn't leave myself a space to connect. And so now we have to build a whole other unnecessary smokestack. Sad, but manageable. We're officially out of workers. Our vehicles are officially very busy. Keep making a few vehicles. That'll help. And great, we've processed some iron, so I think we're gonna flip back to prioritizing the iron scrap. Oh, but we have to dump slag now too. All right, fine. We need to generate slag counterintuitively so that we can get our little goal here. That's fine. All right, it wants us to build another assembly, making construction parts. It's right that we need to ramp that up eventually, and then we should store some. But if I'm being honest with you, I don't think we can quite justify it yet, because we are out of workers. So what we're going to do is, well, we're going to cheese that goal slightly by very temporarily adding and then removing this recipe. I don't generally like cheesing, but we're playing close to the margin here. We probably should build a unit storage for construction parts, though. I think that actually is a reasonable thing to do. We're going to slap it right here, because again, we don't have belts, but it would be really nice if we were able to have this continuously output rather than waiting for trucks. So we'll let that go. I know, I'm aware. Okay, sorry. Back to research. What else do we want to do? Let's see here. I think it's probably best to prioritize. Let's see. I think we want rubber. Now that we have diesel up and running, that'll be an important part of creating electronics. And the next thing we'll do, the other part of that, is copper. So we'll add that to the queue. I don't normally add a second research lab this early, so we're cruising through it faster than I expected, which is a good problem to have. But you can always toggle it off if you decided you've overbuilt, by the way, or if you need to preserve the unity. I don't think you need to have it always going perfectly, so no worries there. And you know what, in fact, yeah, particularly because it takes more workers than we have, and we're a little ahead of schedule, or at least ahead of what we can currently make use of, I think we will pause it. Cool, back to our goals. We have stockpiled products, wonderful. Free wood, free electronics, we'll take it. How are we doing on slag? Got enough slag here to dump? My goodness, someone's dumping some. Perfect, there it is. Which means that we can go back to prioritizing iron scrap, which will save our trucks from having to bring stuff all over the place, which is great because they're busy. And we have our reward here. Lovely. All right, we've researched the beacon. Let's get the beacon going. I usually place it here. It works literally anywhere on the island as far as I can tell, but I like to have it right next to the shipyard just so that I personally am able to see it. If I can't see something very often, I forget it's there. This is how you use Unity, by the way. Someone has to go get the copper and the rest of these. No, they don't. It's there now, and we can continue rather than going piecemeal, waiting for deliveries. So that's great. All right, wait for the first refugees to arrive. That'll take 3 months. Wonderful, nice and quick. Maybe then it's time to build this extra piece of housing, not because we really need it necessarily, but because we'll get a pretty decent subsidy, if nothing else, towards its construction, because it is expensive, from this reward, so we'll take it. All right, let's think a little bit ahead then. So rubber, right? Rubber is made in a rubber maker, intuitively. It uses diesel and coal. Good news. We already have coal being made over by where our diesel is currently being outputted. So we'll probably slap it down over here. It's not an incredibly efficient research, or not an incredibly efficient recipe. It creates this wastewater that we'll have to deal with as well. You can see that when we find access to sulfur, this will be a more efficient recipe in the same building. So we'll make the switch over there as soon as we can, but until then, this is what we have to work with. This is what we'll build. Then, when we look at concrete, that's the next thing we're researching over here, right? This takes limestone and coal, which means we probably need to mine those. Good news about limestone, it's right here. Coal's over here. And we can keep making it out of trees so far. We're at least going to set up the limestone mine, though. And we'll do the coal one in relatively short order, but maybe not immediate. So, nearby, mine control tower. Let's adjust our area of operation again to reflect the dimensions of the deposit. Get it up here, and you can hold control, by the way, to add points. Roughly sufficient shape, escape, and we will give it a mining designation, again with M on the keyboard. We'll just tell it, you know what, to start, take all this flat. Hey, you know what else we're gonna need though? Someone to do the mining. So we'll slap down a small excavator and another pair of pickups. And then, thinking ahead to the coal, actually, I think we'll probably add another mining setup there. But we really can't build all of that quite yet because we are still hurting for workers. How's this going? Ah, my goodness, we don't have enough workers to run the beacon to get more workers. We're now pausing both researches for, 15 seconds until our beacon gives us more people? Sure. Let's just kick up the game speed for 3 seconds and there it is. Look at that. Now we can unpause at least one research lab, but we're going to keep the rest of these people, I think, for other bits and pieces. Diesel production's complete. That's nice. Take that. Population growth also complete. That's nice. We'll take that. All right, so the vehicles depot, as you see, burns through vehicle parts. We're not making those anywhere. I told you that was fine because we had a pile of them. We still kind of do, but what our vehicle queue here is already going to take up is 40, 60, 80, 120. The majority of these are already spoken for in our queue, which means it's probably time to produce some more. Do we slap down another assembly? I actually think we will put it in here briefly because, and only because, vehicle parts are made from these resources. We're going to prioritize it intentionally like this because we always want to have a few mechanical parts and electronics available to us because again, they are pretty critical. They supply our maintenance, but we don't need them in high velocities quite yet. So with any leftovers of these that we produce, it'll be fine to make some vehicle parts. We'll set up a more dedicated production when we either have to and or can justify it. Bit of both. All right, what does it want us to do here? Disable truck import for the new diesel storage. It doesn't want us to be able to bring trucks or have trucks bring diesel over here. This is just for storage for diesel produced here. I think that's actually quite fair. I would like that to be how this operates, not just for the goal. But we'll take the goal. Hey, look at that. We'll talk about cement in a moment. But we have to continue researching. Vehicle parts are going to produce, and then it wants us to repair the ship dock. We'll get there in a moment because our excavator's here. Let's talk limestone. 1, 2 pickup pals for him. Remember, though, we need an ore sorter. Now, we could technically have this ore sorter add limestone, once we've researched it, as something it's allowed to sort through. That's a hell of a trip, though. And it's going to burn a lot of unnecessary time and diesel and truck throughput. So I think we're actually going to justify to ourselves building another ore sorter. If you really wanted to min-max, you could have placed one of these like here, but I think you've run out of throughput for these relatively quickly anyway. So personally, I prefer to not treat these as a particularly precious resource, and we will have, as many of them as we need. As many as we need. Same thing here, we'll add rock and dirt because that's what you're gonna pick up along the way, but we are focused on limestone, and again, we'll have our small excavator focus on limestone because he's pulling dirt out of the ground by default, which is not what we want. That's going. Wonderful news. Vehicle parts, they're not being prioritized. Maybe we'll move them up just for the sake of getting the goal checked. And then I think maybe we can talk about getting a coal mine up and running so that we don't have to do this very silly dance with our coal maker any longer. Yeah, I think that's what we're going to do. With some of the new refugees who just arrived. And hey, by the way, they bring materials, like I mentioned. And it's like kind of a few, which is lovely. We take that. We are also out of trees that we have said are okay to kill. Let's add a few more of those, focusing on the areas where we want to expand next. And eventually we want to, I think, clear all of this so that we can get to the coal mine that we are about to establish, right, which is here. These contour lines, I probably want to flatten all of this area eventually, which means I don't want to build our mine tower on the contoured areas. So what I'm going to do, make sure to place it here where I can see the grid lines. We'll put him here. Edit this area again. Should be used to this by now. To make it reflect the dimensions of the deposit we want it to work on, which is roughly that. Doesn't matter if they overlap, especially if there's nothing that they're actually aiming for right there. So this is going. Hey, let's use some Unity to make it fast because it's far away, quite a delivery. And then we just need our vehicle depot to finish building the excavator. It's about halfway done. Cool, that's great news. I also think we can justify second research lab back on, and collect our reward for vehicle parts. Great, before I forget, let's drop this back down the priority list again. Okay, we are starting to feel like we're in a pretty good place here. Let's see, what all have we done while we wait for concrete to research? We have gotten our population inputs sorted. By that I just mean potatoes for now. You'll see our fertility's dropping, our moisture's not consistent. It's fine for now. It's definitely good enough. We have plenty. We also have our trash output. It's definitely something we can keep up with. There's nothing in the settlement. It's all here, and actually it's all here, which is lovely. We'll make that look prettier later, but that's great. Our wood production is going. Our harvester is getting after it. We have smelting. It is prioritizing from scrap, but it also absolutely has sufficient mining output once the scrap runs out. Lovely. You'll love to see it. We have diesel production going. We'll slap down rubber here in a second, but we have construction parts as well. Our research lab is up. We have power. We have a trading dock for cases of emergency. We have a beacon pulling people in. We have mechanical parts and electronics going in order to make vehicle parts and maintenance. And we're about to slap down some basic concrete along with rubber, and that's really going to wrap up our basic material setup so that we are able to really stand on our own, and there won't be any like, oh crap, we're out of a thing that we don't make. Which, it's not a fun feeling. So quickly, let's get down our concrete slab production. We're going to keep it relatively near the limestone. Not worried about this too much. There's, in pretty short order, a better recipe that we're going to unlock. So this is definitely temporary. With that in mind, I'm not going to stress about it too much. We'll have to get rid of the exhaust. We're going to have to input water. How do we do that? We haven't done that yet. Well, at first, all we have access to is this big, dumb rainwater harvester. And These things are so space intensive and not particularly aesthetic, but you know what? They're free water. I really can't complain too much. So we'll let that go. It doesn't take any people. It takes a little bit of maintenance, but it doesn't take, any sort of servicing whatsoever. It's really as close to anything is in this game. It's free. It's a free resource. So we'll deal with the, well, it's probably not that ugly, but it bothers me. I will replace it eventually. We'll live with it for now. That's water. Coal, as we said, currently being made here. Limestone currently being mined here. By the way, we probably need an ore sorter out here too, huh? It's starting to get kind of expensive. What we might do here is share this ore sorter, at least in the short term. It's a long way to go, but you know what? It's better than burning trees, so that's fine. With all this in motion, we should be able to square this up in a moment. Now the last thing that we want to do is rubber. Rubber maker is here. As we said, it takes diesel. And I think we're gonna feel okay with siphoning it off of this storage, at least a little bit. So let's do it like this. And I'm not going to... Let's do this in blueprint mode, by the way, which is here. I usually just press B, but just to show it off. Let's create a little storage for our wastewater so that we don't have to get all bogged down by it every time. But we're not going to build it yet. We don't quite have the materials to justify it, but let's future-proof it and actually connect it properly. Oh my goodness. So this rubber maker, as we said, we'd love to have some sulfur, but we don't have it. We'll prioritize it when we get it, but until then, coal, diesel, we'll make rubber, and our wastewater. So let's get pipe here, and then we will have to hand deliver coal until we get belts. But that's fine. Trucks will be able to reach it from here. So that's good news. Let's crank this up. I would love to get more construction parts going here, frankly. How is this guy doing? He's taking a while. Let's give him a third truck. I don't think it's that big a deal. Let's give him a third truck so that he's not our bottleneck anymore, particularly with this all cranked up. And we've turned, as you can see, the priority of servicing this building higher for trucks. So he will not, go to the closer coal maker. We'll actually take care of it over here. Copper production, I think we're going to save for now. We have quite a bit of it, as you can see, and we're going to get more of it. It's a really important production, so we want to get it up and running properly, but the longer we can delay it, the bigger initial setup we'll be able to make. So I think we're okay with that for now. And go ahead, do ship dock repair. And then in fact, we'll add these to the queue. We'll call that the end of our stage 1 of research. We've made some we've produced some concrete. We've got that all sorted. Our rubber maker is being produced, built. That's gonna take a moment. Oh, good. More. See, this is what I mean. Like, we're gonna get copper here and there. We're also getting rubber, but we're definitely getting copper too. So I'm not gonna stress about that too hard too early, but we don't want to be caught off guard by that eventually. But yeah, once the rubber maker is complete here, I think we're going to feel pretty good about what we've managed to accomplish in our first setup. I think, what do we want to look forward to, in our next session? I think copper is probably that big headliner. We need to get our ship dock repaired, Big Bertha out and in motion. Very excited for that. And then we'll need to get to construction number 2, which is, like our construction parts, but yellow and therefore better. that will start to unlock a whole bunch of stuff that's going to allow us to, build a bit more of a permanent, as much as anything is permanent in this game, a more permanent starter base, so to speak. So definitely looking forward to that. That's where the game starts to open up a little bit. Right now we're doing the things that we have to do. Great, rubber is produced. The shipyard needs repaired. Yeah, we don't have 100 of that yet, but we'll probably do that in the next episode. And we're gonna let the rubber be produced so that we can get that last little hit of dopamine here. Check this one off, and we will call it an episode as long as someone eventually brings some dang coal. Come on now. More refugees. Love it. Our construction parts. We're cruising too. That's great. And finally, there it is. All right, we've done it. Rubber. Reward collected. Great. Well, hey, thanks for joining. This was a really fun episode to get things up off the ground. What I'm really looking forward to, though, is starting to build out our little town, our little factory, our little base a little bit more. This game gets a lot more fun the more you're able to expand. And so this was, hopefully, we cruised through sort of the basic setup in a way that was still had some pace, but was still accessible to everyone. But, if I glossed over anything, of course, leave a comment, ask a question. I will be active in responding to them, and or may be able to cover it in a future episode. Definitely join for the next one if you enjoyed this one. Like I said, we're just getting started. So, talk soon.